Hello, and thanks for watching another edition of ARFCOM News. Today I want to tell you about why it looks like Sniffy Joe is already losing his stomach for gun control, new revelations in the continuing saga of NRA malfeasance, and how the FPC absolutely slays in court, plus lots more. But before we get started, I want to tell you about the cruelty-free, gluten-free, non-GMO, zero trans fat night vision products offered to you by our friends at TNVC.com, just like Mom used to make. If you like seeing stuff more than not seeing stuff, take a look at our sponsor, TNVC.com, your source for quality night vision gear to make you the bump in the night. I know this may be difficult for you to believe, but politicians aren't always totally honest. So even though you probably have the utmost confidence in the gospel truth of every word which falls from the lips of Joe or your parents' home, BIDIN, I'm here to tell you he has occasionally spoken in error, and as shocking as it may be to you, I believe he has even intentionally misled people from time to time. I know, that's hard to take in, so I'll give you a moment to recover. Incredible, I know, but it seems the Predator-in-Chief may have oversold his promises to impose draconian restrictions on our civil rights in order to get elected. The UK Daily Mail is reporting the White House got pretty evasive when pressed for details about Uncle Touchy's secret basement wonderland of control freak fetishes, but they admitted they have no legislative package ready to submit to Congress and claimed gun control is more of a personal interest to stranger danger than the top-level public policy priority he promoted during his campaign. So we can all breathe a cleansing sigh of relief, join hands, and sing Kumbaya, secure in the knowledge the gun control freaks have been defeated and our sport utility rifles can come out of the safe to frolic in the fields, right? Obviously not. Although I do think the massive wave of gun purchasing by new gun owners and minorities has rightly caused the Bad Touch and his henchmen to reconsider whether their authoritarian proposals are as wise as they previously thought, there is no reason to assume gun control won't quickly become a priority if they are presented with the right tragedy to exploit. In the short term, though, it sounds like Uncle Naughty Hands is uninterested in spending political capital on gun control, though he would certainly sign anything which happened to cross his desk. At this point, I'll take whatever small wins we can get, but if we want to turn this glimmer of hope into a sanitizing can of nuclear sunshine from orbit, we need to contact politicrators from both major parties and make them understand infringement is not in their best interest. It is one thing to take part in the partisan volleyball back-and-forth battles for branches of government. It is quite another thing for voters across the political spectrum to affirm their basic human right to be armed. The mostly peaceful riots over the last year have disabused millions of people of their illusion of security, but the causes of the unrest have also led people to question their beliefs about gun control. After all, if you believe the justice system is fundamentally flawed, it would be foolish to advocate for policies which create a state monopoly on force. How could you argue to arm your oppressors and disarm the oppressed? Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying things have changed overnight, but I am saying 8 million new gun owners are a powerful force in American politics, and now is our chance to end gun control as a partisan wedge issue. Gun control disproportionately harms the poor, minorities, and the infirm. Gun rights are human rights. So, regardless of which party representatives belong to, I want you to call and email them right now, and I want you to tell them you will vote them out in the next primary if they attempt to pass any law which seeks to make it more difficult for the people to arm themselves. I want you to tell them that fees, taxes, and waiting periods are minor inconveniences for the privileged few in their gated communities, but they can mean the difference between life and death for a poor single mother being stalked by an alcoholic and abusive ex. I want you to make these public servants understand that regardless of what color their tie is, they work for the people, not the party, and they will lose their next primary if they attempt to undermine the power of the people. Can I get an amen? As you know, the NRA has been struggling for years, and the last year has been particularly hard on them. New York State Attorney General Letitia James filed a politically motivated suit against the NRA seeking to dissolve the organization, which is based in New York. She ironically alleges the NRA isn't spending enough on gun rights advocacy, but rather than seeking to purge the senior leadership, who she accuses of financial impropriety, she instead claims the members would be best served by dissolving the organization entirely. In an apparent attempt to dodge that suit and move to Texas, the NRA filed bankruptcy. The slow trickle of revelations about the decadent excesses of senior leadership has evolved into a flood of hard facts now, with a list of luxurious expenditures exposed by a recent summary of assets court filing. Those assets include a statue and painting of Charlton Heston valued at about $100,000 together, a Range Rover for the NRA treasurer, and a $20,000 prepayment to a private jet company. All told, the NRA reports they have about $240 million in assets and about $112 million in liabilities, including $180,000 owed to a company called, folks, I can't make this up, Wayne LaPierre Expense Reports Reserve. We don't know why the NRA owes this separate company almost 200 G's or why it operates out of the same building as the NRA, but cynics could point out it conveniently obscures $180,000 of something which is associated with LaPierre. Party on, Wayne. If you would like to comb through the 222-page PDF detailing the NRA's assets and liabilities, it is linked down there in the doobly-doo. But David Del Aquila, who is spearheading a class action suit against senior NRA leadership, says he expects the details of that document to make it possible to have them removed and replaced with a court-appointed trustee. Del Aquila, who has donated six-figure sums to the NRA, was appointed by the bankruptcy court to a committee representing unsecured creditors, and he filed the class action on behalf of all donors. Because donors represent $64 million of the $112 million in liability the NRA has, that makes donors easily the largest creditor. Del Aquila said the NRA is saying we cleaned up our act. You haven't cleaned up your act. You can't say, well, LaPierre paid back some money and that's been resolved and it ain't going to be an issue. They say the board has done their job and due diligence. The board hasn't. Now, I don't think I'm going out on a limb when I say most gun rights activists can agree the NRA is mostly a good organization which does a fantastic job advocating for gun owners, especially in regard to the education it does and the litigation it fights, as well as the lobbying through the ILA. I don't think it's particularly controversial to say the only real problem with the NRA lies squarely on the shoulders of its senior leadership, and if they were all replaced, the organization could get back to doing the Lord's work. The Firearm Policy Coalition is one of the civil rights groups which never takes a break from doing the Lord's work and doesn't spend membership dues on fancy suits, luxury cars, and private jets. The FPC recently won a preliminary injunction in Pennsylvania which prevents the state requiring background checks for 80% receivers and other vaguely gun-shaped lumps of metal or plastic which could conceivably someday become a gun if you wish hard enough and, well, you know, chuck them up in a milling machine and actually make the cuts to manufacture a receiver. The injunction is temporary and hinges on technical and procedural grounds, so it may not last. If you want an 80% receiver in the PA, you should probably snatch up as many as you can while you can. If you even can, for that matter. Attorney General Joshua Shapiro has indicated he doesn't seem to have any intention of complying with the injunction. This injunction doesn't change our legal opinion. 80% receivers are firearms in Pennsylvania. Remember, the way authoritarians like him see things, the law only binds the people. As far as Shapiro is concerned, he is the law, and no puny judge can tell him not to trample all over the little people. He is a high priest in the Church of the State, after all. The FPC also recently won a more permanent settlement in their suit against the Allegheny County, Pennsylvania Sheriff's Office. When the governor of Pennsylvania declared an emergency for the bat sniffles, he also decreed a license would be required to carry a firearm anywhere in public, whether concealed or not. On its own, I believe a requirement to genuflect to the altar of the state in order to carry a gun is an affront to the U.S. Constitution and basic human dignity. But when Allegheny County Sheriff William P. Mullen decided to stop issuing carry permits at the end of November, That left people with no legal means to carry a gun at all, and that was a clear and blatant violation of the Second Amendment. So the FPC immediately sued in U.S. District Court. Fortunately, the parties were able to reach an agreement in negotiation without forcing a judgment, which brought an end to the case much more quickly. Under the settlement, the ACSO is required to continue accepting applications via email, even if their physical offices are closed, and they agreed not to require BS red tape such as in-person interviews, character references, fingerprint cards, or any other burdensome and arbitrary hurdles not specified by statute. Winning cases like this means keeping a whole herd of lawyers freshly watered, fed, and groomed, which takes funding. If you want to help the FPC to keep on bringing the pain to authoritarian control freaks, pause this video right now and go to firearmspolicy.org/donate and give generously. It's the least you can do. Well, technically the least you could do is to sit idly by and watch from the sidelines while 2A pipe hitters like the attorneys who work for the FPC do all the heavy lifting for you. But the least you could do and actually be contributing something to the fight is to warm up that debit card and flip a few eddies to the folks at the FPC, SAF, GOA, and all the countless other gun rights advocacy groups who are out there making miracles for us. Gun industry news! It ain't often we see something really different in the gun industry, especially in relation to revolvers, but a company called Zeta 6 has actually done it. Surprisingly, there are indeed some fairly rational reasons to still carry a wheel gun in current year. I mean, there are also some really dumb reasons floating around, like the idea they're more reliable or simpler to operate. That's simply not true when you compare to a modern auto like a Glock or Shield. But the alloy flavors are very light, and revolvers can be fired in contact with an attacker without inducing a malfunction. That's a good thing when you consider most attacks happen at bad breath range. It's also worth considering it's more practical to carry a revolver than an automatic in Magnum cartridges for a trail gun. But as unlikely as it is for you to need a reload, I think most of us would feel more comfortable knowing we can stuff a few more rounds in, especially when we're only starting with 5 or 6 to begin with. The problem is that stuffing rounds into a revolver is slow. Speed loaders help, but they're bulky and uncomfortable to carry. Speed strips are flat, so they can carry easily in a pocket or a belt pouch, and you can stick 2 rounds in at a time, so they're quicker than loose ammo while being easier to carry than speed loaders. The Zeta 6 K-Pack splits the difference. It works like a speed strip, but with 3 staggered rows of 2 rounds, making it slightly thicker. It also allows you to load 3 rounds at a time instead of just 2. That's 50% more bullet per bullet. There's also a 5-shot version for J-frames, and both models are $12. Well, friends, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoy watching these things because I sure like making them for you. If you want to help us keep bringing you banger content like this, please support the folks who support us. Not only does TNVC.com give you night vision with that cool, refreshing, never bitter taste that goes down smooth, they also have mounts, lights, and all sorts of other gear to make you the bump in the night. And if you want a baller cap like mine, you can get it at brownells.com. Or you can buy fly shirts like this one in our Teespring store. Or if you'd like to try your luck and see if you can win your choice of fly shirt from our Teespring store, post a comment containing the phrase "gun rights are human rights" in the YouTube comments, and I will arbitrarily and unilaterally choose the best one. I love you.